Okay guys, this just happened a few days ago. I work at a hospital as a room service ambassador and work on the surgical floor. One day I found out while I was off, a Karen was admitted to the hospital. She supposedly was very rude and demanded 5 entrees on her tray, 4 sides and 3 desserts on each of her meal trays. She would throw the whole tray on the floor and would loudly complain if there was even a packet of sugar missing. One day it made one of my fellow ambassadors cry. So when I heard of this, I had to see this for myself. She was skinny and ate everything on the tray. She was on a calorie restricted diet, but the nurses didn't want to hear her complain, so they let her have it. Well, I saw the lady herself and was indeed skinny and not how I was expecting her to look like. Well, after testing around and forgetting an orange juice on her tray, she threw the tray on the ground in front of me. See, she was in a contact room, which meant we had to wash our hands down up and glove up. Not only that, but we had to ask her for her name and date of birth. Malicious compliance mode engaged. Well, I saw this as an opportunity and brought her up another tray, this time syrup missing on the tray. I gowned up and gloved up slowly in front of her door so she could see me. Then I went in with my best ambassador voice and big smile and said, name and date of birth ma'am, which she grunted annoyed and said her name and date of birth. Then I said, do you want the tray over you or on the side? Then she said, over me, you idiot. So I complied and did so. She saw the missing syrup and threw the tray on the ground. Then I looked and said, oops, forgot the syrup. I'll get you another tray. So I went and got her the same tray, of course without the pepper on it. I went up, put the gown on, slowly turned towards her with a smile and said, I'll be with you shortly, then gloved up. Then I said, oops, forgot to wash my hands. Proceed to take off the gloves and gown and wash my hands, went back and put gloves and a gown on again. I could just see the fury in her eyes. Then I went into her room, name and date of birth ma'am. Then she said, you just asked me that question, you should know by now. Now give me the damn food. Then I said, I can't give you the tray till you give me your name and date of birth. She said fine and gave me the info that she saw the pepper was missing but didn't say anything. Then I said, do you want it over you or on the side? She said over, and I did. So then I said, have a good morning, and took off my gown, glove, and sanitized out of the room. She never complained about her trays again. I have many other stories, but this one I'm most proud about. This happened a few weeks ago. My dad lives across the country from my sister. She recently graduated high school and he came out to visit. It's important to note that he's never really been good to her. My sister is immediately met with many commands. My dad said she must drive him home from the airport to his hotel, then pick him up the next day and get dinner after graduation, along with some other things not important to the story. My sister and mom share a car. When asked how exactly my mom is meant to get around, he replies, she can just Uber. My dad pulls a fun surprise and flies in a day early. My sister, who had been sick and running a fever, had to pick him up unexpectedly and go out to eat. At this point, my mom was mad. She offered to do something about it, but my sister calmly said no thanks. She proceeds to ask all of her friends what the most expensive restaurant in the city is. I won't give away anything to revealing, but this was in a pretty well-off Midwestern city, a really nice part of that, so you can imagine the results her wealthy friends presented her. So, she picks him up and goes to a restaurant where there isn't a single entree item under $75. She orders the most expensive steak entree on the menu with a loaded potato and truffle mac and cheese as sides, both costing extra BTW. She goes home with plenty of delicious food, and he goes home with a $400 hole in his pocket. So I worked for a company for a few years, got turned down for every promotion, but was still expected to do the extra work because they stopped scheduling anyone to do it, and either it would make me look better if I just did it, covering breaks, checking logs, safety walks, etc. We had 3 department managers who only worked during the day and a supervisor for the mid shift, but no management at night. A position opened up for the job, and I put in for it, but then was closed because of labor and budget issues and lack of applications. A few weeks later they complained I wasn't doing enough production and needed to focus more on my work, so eventually I just stopped doing the extra work and let the department fall to shit. We got pinged from the regional manager for missing too many safety walks. We got pinged by health and safety for not having properly filled logs. Customers complained about lack of service due to employees being on breaks. Management flipped shit and said this would probably prevent me from getting a promotion in the future. When I asked why, they told me that these were part of my job duties. But you told me to focus on productivity, not any extra duties. These are part of a supervisor role, not mine. MGMT, you have been doing them for months now. Why did you just stop? You told me to focus on production. MGMT, well, until we find someone to work at night they have to be covered. Wow, so one of the managers will have to close every night. That's rough. MGMT, come on, we're all a team. You can help us out, right? Sorry, I'm not comfortable doing extra duties beyond my role without proper training and compensation. Backstory. I play paintball with an established scenario team that travels all over the USA playing large scenario games, and have been flown to Europe by our sponsors to play over there as well. We as a team have existed for over 25 years and have played hundreds of games together. These scenario games typically last for 8 to 26 hours, played over 100 or more acres, and consist of usually 2 or more sides with upwards to hundreds, sometimes rarely thousands, of players on the field at once. We have consulted and run our own games during our years. Needless to say, we have a lot of experience, and when we are invited to games we will typically make some suggestions to the field. If they have a rule that is easily abused and can break the game they are running, we usually do our best to explain the interpretation, as we don't want to ruin anyone's fun with poor execution. There is a standard set of rules that a lot of experienced producers will borrow from, as it has been well play tested. One of the aspects of most scenario games is the field role of a medic, a player who can revive a player who has been hit, provided some simple conditions are met. This allows players a second chance on the field without having to walk off and wait for reinsertion into the game. It can help add some fun, and usually helps prevent cheating, as a player can attempt to get healed and keep playing instead of having to deal with moral dilemma of the sometimes long walk off the field to wait to be reinserted if they are eliminated by the result of a boneheaded decision. It also allows for some pretty aggressive moves on the field, as the player can sometimes get a second chance, usually after discussion with the producer, and if our interpretation is correct, most producers will heed our advice, because it's easier to fix a rule before the game starts than after. The setup for the MC. Prior to arriving at this particular field, we read the rules that were published beforehand, and after arrival had met with the producer to explain our concern for his interpretation of the standard medic role. Usually the medics have to wipe off the old hit, as to not confuse other players with what is recent and an eliminating hit, and to prevent the player, if shady, from claiming it's an old hit and continuing playing. Usually medics have a limited number of times they can revive a player and a brief window of time to which they can heal. Medics also usually are not allowed to heal players who have been hit in the head, as to also provide a taste of realism to the event. Players waiting for a medic are not allowed to wander around and have to wait out their time limit at where they were hit. This particular producer had decided to skip tradition and developed his own rule. Simply put, the medic just has to touch the player in question to consider them healed, no other conditions or procedure. We attempted to discuss the reasons why this was a bad idea, but was informed that the producer was an experienced producer and it cannot be abused. Anything else is overkill, that we were unfounded in our concerns. We decided we weren't going to get any further with him and left to prepare for the game. The MC. During the early part of the game, we were making a push up a well-defended hill. One of our players had advanced too far to get a prop, a piece of equipment unique to the story of the game, a MacGuffin, and gotten himself hit while making a grab for it. We needed the prop to complete a different task on the field later. We were outnumbered and in a poor location, but we had a medic player with us who was enjoying our shenanigans. We yelled to the hit player to hold his location, and for him to yell for the medic, so the other players would know he wasn't just laying there. We called a referee over to explain our plan and ask for rules clarification for our interpretation. He confirmed and validated our plan was within the rules. We implemented it. What we did was to form a very tight circle of players standing shoulder to shoulder around the medic, so that no shots could make it past our wall of players. The medic was to continuously move his hands over our backs to heal us. since he only had to touch us while we advanced up the hill to retrieve our fallen player in the prop. With everyone ready including the referee in tow to eliminate the medic if he got hit, which would have ended our plan. We made our march up the hill, enclosed the hit player in our wall so the medic could touch him, and then proceeded to back down to our original gathering point. Those of us in the front took a lot of pained hits and pain, but we knew that going into it, the medic was not hit as confirmed by the ref. Our plan succeeded. This resulted in much yelling and complaining by the opposing force, the referee calling over a few refs nearby to defuse the situation, while also explaining that what we did was well within the rules, and with the referee's blessing. The fallout, most of us being low on supplies, decided to head off the field, leaving another player to move the prop to where it needed to go and continue the game. By the time we got back to our tent off field, the head ref was waiting for us as he had received complaints from other players, and for us to explain what had happened. We explained our side of it, the referee involved in the situation. The head ref confirmed with the field ref, and by the end of it was cracking up. He made an executive decision and radioed to the producer and the on-field refs that medics' powers on the field are to be revoked until further notice. The producer eventually came over to apologize, and the medic role was entirely removed from the game for the rest of the event as it was easier than reworking them during the game. If you enjoyed the stories, slap the like and subscribe button for more of them, and don't forget to support the original writers with an upvote. Links are in the description. Peace out, and catch you tomorrow.